This is the Innovv C1. It's the latest tiny HD camera from the people behind some of the keyring cameras from the last couple of years, although this time they've turned things up a notch. Now I think the brief when they set out to design this was to come up with the most stylish looking tiny HD camera, and I think they've gone a good way towards achieving that goal. Now the camera's available in black and gold as they call it, but it's more of an orange, silver and blue. Now it comes in a box like this, on the back of which are the specifications, which I'll show you now, but you don't have to read all these unless you really want to. If you do, I suggest you pause the video. I'll go through all this later on. The only thing I will mention though, the battery life is about 80 minutes. Now inside the box, the camera is in the top in this little protective cover here. We'll just get it out and have a look at it quickly. You'll see that the camera's on the top there, but on the bottom we've got this plastic cradle which is attached to the camera at the moment. I'll show you that first actually. Let's just go through that. So that is attached by sort of gripping the sides of the camera. This is what it looks like on its own. Of course it's got a tripod screw on the bottom there, so you can mount it to things if you want, but that will pop out if you push it hard, and that means that you can attach it to things with maybe a piece of Velcro or double-sided sticky stuff on the bottom there, so you could put it flat like that, or if you've got some very thin belts you could put them through those slots on there as well. If you want to convert it back to something that can be attached to a tripod, just get the centre bit, push it down hard, click it in, and there you go. The camera can now be put on anything with a tripod mount. Now that's pretty useful because they're very easy to come by. Now we'll just tip the rest of the things out of the box and see what you get. Well, at the top left there, that's a neck lanyard, but there's no way of attaching it just to the camera itself because there's no loop on the camera. I suppose you have to attach it to the cradle. Below that is a double-sided piece of sticky back Velcro. Now the USB leads that are used with this camera use a non-standard plug, which is a bit annoying because it means you can't use any of your existing leads or just pop in a shop and get one if you need one. You've got to stick to these. It's got the AV out lead with it as well. Now the instruction booklet that comes with it is a little leaflet really, double-sided, but it's got the information on there that you need. Although I'm going to go through it all in this video anyway, so if you don't understand any of that, hopefully this video will help you out. Now we'll look at the camera and see how it works. As you can see on the front of it, there's 3 buttons with an LED above them. They're quite easily labelled, easy to understand. You've got a shutter button, mode button, power button. On this side, we've got a slider switch, which is a new thing on a little camera like this. The rear position is just normal recording. The middle one is looped recording. That's when it records a lot of little segments and deletes the oldest ones when it's full. Therefore, you can use it as a security camera or in a car. The forward one is a white LED, and you can record and use the white LED at the same time, or you can just use it as a torch if you want. Now around the rear of the camera there's the USB port. I thought I should mention here you can't power and record at the same time using the supplied lead. You do need a special lead for that that's not in the box. On the right is a micro SD card slot there, which is very inset into the camera. A bit concerned about the micro SD card getting stuck in there, but if it does you could just unscrew those 2 screws to get it out. Above there is a reset hole. And round on the front of the camera, obviously you've got the lens, but next to that you've got that white LED. The lens does stick out a little bit, but that's good because it means you don't get any vignetting from the sides of the case and it's easy to clean. Next to that is a tiny hole, and that's where the microphone is. Quite sensitive, the microphone as well. Now let's turn the camera on and just have a look at the different ways it operates. Now this is all out of the box. You can change a lot of these settings and I'll show you that later on, but just out of the box this is how it works. You power it on and it starts recording, which is indicated by the flashing red light. Stop the recording by pressing the top button, the shutter button. So now it's in standby and we can move between the modes. Press the M button for the modes. The green one is 720p 60. And press it again, that gets to the yellow one, that's the photo mode. And then we've got one more after that, press it again. This flashing one means that it's waiting for a shock before it starts recording. I'll show you that in a second. Press the M again, back to the beginning 1080p 30 mode. So if you press the shutter button, it just starts recording. It's pretty quick, pretty responsive. It's easy to start and stop like that and move between modes. Let's just take a photo to show you how quickly that reacts. So you tap it there. There's a double flash there, so I don't know which one is the photo, whether it's the first one or the second, but worth holding your hand steady anyway. Now this one where it flashes, this one where it's waiting for a shock, I'll just show you. Give it a shock there. Look at the LED. And notice how it's going slower now. That means it's actually recording. It's got a motion sensor in this camera, which is how it manages to do that. Now, it's a bit hard moving past that mode sometimes, because if you move the camera around while you're moving modes, it thinks it's had a shock, which is a little bit annoying. But again, you can switch that off. Now, we'll just start it recording, and I'll just show you another feature it's got. It has an orientation sensor. So it knows when it's upside down, and it will flip the video accordingly. Now, I can kind of demonstrate that in a way here. Look at the flashing red light, shows it's recording. If I flip the camera upside down, it will stop recording and then start again, but with the video the other way up. So therefore, if I spin it over again, you'll see the red light just stop momentarily while it has a think, and then it starts recording again with the video this way up. Again, you can switch this on or off depending on what you prefer. The video files that the camera creates are H.264 MOV files. Now, the bitrate on those is nice and high. It's about 15.25 megabits a second. It's a variable bitrate, but it always stays high, and therefore it won't have blocking in the video. Now, I took the camera out and about around Manchester. It's winter, so there's not much going on, but I'll show you some of the things I managed to shoot with it. I suppose the first thing that I should mention is that the camera's a pleasure to use. It feels very comfortable in the hands with it having those rounded off edges. It doesn't stick in the hand, but also with it being flat on the top and the bottom, it's quite easy to figure out when you're holding it flat, and therefore you won't see too many shots where everything's at an angle with this camera. And it's quite easy to frame things. Notice here how I'm quite able to frame this statue without actually knowing what I'm looking at, because the camera of course doesn't have any kind of viewfinder on it. I'm just holding it at waist height here and pointing it at things, but because it's got a nice wide angle lens, it's able to get a lot in shot. Now, you'll notice it does have a fisheye effect. That's that kind of bulging that you get as you pan around, and that's a side effect of having a small lens with a wide angle. You're always going to get that kind of effect, I'm afraid. Although there is another camera that they've got which does reduce that slightly. I'll show you that later on. But just look at the quality of this. Look at the amount of detail you can see on this building here. All the individual little windows and balconies and things. It's pin sharp, this camera. Now, one thing I did notice when I took some footage is that a lot of it seemed to be just a little bit underexposed for me. Now, maybe that's my laptop, to be honest. Maybe my screen's a little bit dark. I'm not too sure, but it just looked a little bit dark. So what I did, I went in the setup program and adjusted the exposure up by 0.5. Now, I think the footage as a whole came out a little bit better as a result, but I have seen some footage I've shot which seems a little bit overexposed. But you'll see in a shot like this that things do look a little bit too dark down the bottom, but when you pan down it sort of equals it out. Now, of course, this is a lot to do with winter sun. You get that low sun in the sky and it makes things a little bit glary into the camera lens, so maybe the camera's not to blame, maybe it's the season. But as you can see, it looks excellent. Now let's go inside and just have a look at some of that 720p footage, because 720p isn't that hot on this camera. So this is 1080p first of all, by the way, but I'll move on. I'll show you some 1080p taken from my usual corner, and we'll do a bit of a zoom in on that just to see how sharp that is, and then we'll have a look at some 720. So here's your 1080p, nice and clear again. Just zoom in into that corner and we'll just have a look at a crop of it. Bit of a shaky hand here. Of course, there's no stabilization in this camera, but you can see the shop signs there are quite clear and easy to read. Now let's pull back again and just have a look at the 720. Now 720 is supposed to be 720p 60. It isn't quite 60 frames a second, it's more like 40, and it's also very fizzy. Let's zoom in. Look at the image here. There's a kind of aliasing, a sort of blocky fizziness to the picture, which is just pretty unpleasant, really. And the fact that it doesn't do 60 frames a second, it actually does sort of 40, 41, that kind of thing, means that it's probably not worth using 720p. We'll just look again. This is 1080p, showing the Woosang. You can see all the detail on here, very nice and clear. And then we'll just move across into the 720p version, and there you go. It's a weird effect to it, and I don't like it. It isn't a nice quality image. So if you're getting this camera for 720p, well, don't. Get it for 1080p 30. Now let's just have a look inside the Printworks, which is opposite there. Again, I always go in here because it's nice and dark, and they don't allow photography. So it's a good camera to take in there because nobody can tell that you're filming. Strangely, they don't allow photography because they have a thing inside that says tweet a picture of you next to this and see if you win some prize. I don't know how you're going to take a picture. Maybe you're supposed to draw it and sort of scan it or something. But anyway, we'll go into the entrance here. You can see outside there, nice and bright. We'll just flip around again just to show how the camera can cope with transitions between different lighting levels. It's pretty good, that really. It's very quick in adjusting. Now let's just go up into the sort of dark corner here, and it isn't dark, is it? Nice and clear. You can see all the things that are going on. I've got other cameras I've tested where this is all pitch black. The light's the same every day that you go in here because there's no real natural light coming in, so it's a good test really, and it's doing an excellent job. As you can see here, stood on the station platform again, night time, nice and dark. But you can see everything that's going on. Now it does have a bit of a smear effect if you were to sort of spin around quickly. I think it reduces the frame rate down in the dark, which is what keeps the brightness up, I suppose. Now during the day again, nice and clear. Just look at the amount of detail here, how you can see all the cobbles and things on the floor. If you're having any trouble with any of these clips, by the way, on YouTube, they don't look too hot or a little bit blocky or sort of jerky or any of that business, I put some stuff up on my blog that you can download, the untouched raw clips that came straight from the camera. All I've done is I've trimmed the ends off them so they weren't too big so you can download them. Just have a listen to this a second. I just wanted you to hear there how sensitive the microphone was. You could hear the metallic objects that chap had in his right hand jingling away as he pushed his cart down the road. Shows you how sensitive it is, and also the camera is very discreet. You can film people without them knowing that you're using it. So it would be a good spy camera, I suppose, if you're into that kind of thing. One thing though, I didn't quite get this Chinese lantern tree in shot because I couldn't see where I was pointing it. I wanted to get the top of the tree in there, but of course that's part and parcel of having a camera without a viewfinder. Let's have a listen to a little bit more sound from the camera now. Here's an example of the camera getting the exposure a bit wrong, but I can't imagine as many cameras will get this right. I'm pointing up at the top of the clock there, and it's picking up the brightness from the sky rather than the clock tower, but you'll notice as I go downwards, it brings the brightness up to how it should be so you can see the building. That might be a little bit tricky for any camera, so I can't really blame this one, but I just want to point out that you do sometimes need to point the camera in the right direction, away from the brightness, towards an object to get the exposure right. So if you were putting this on a helmet or something and planning on running around all over the place, there might be occasions where it gets the exposure wrong because you're looking in the wrong direction. It's just one of those things. Now, let's have a look at some photos that I took with the camera. Of course, it does take photos as well. We'll just have a quick look at some of those. The photos pretty much look like 1080p frame grabs, although they're in a 4:3 format, so they're using the full sensor. Nice and sharp though, can't complain about them at all. You could probably take better photos with the smartphone you've got in your pocket, but you won't get this kind of wide angle, so it is useful even if you've got your smartphone to carry this around as well, I suppose. And it's especially good in low light, as we saw before. Now, other than the Innovv C1, the manufacturer sent me the C2 model as well. Now, it doesn't have to be black, it just is so you can see it. The main difference, of course, is the lens on the front there. Pretty obvious, really. It's a wider angle lens, not by much, just a little bit, but it does have a bit of an advantage that it has less fisheye, but it has a disadvantage, of course, because it sticks out of the front of the camera quite a way. So it's a bit of a compromise. Let's just have a look. Here's a C1 frame grab. Now I'm going to show you a C2, but ignore the exposure difference. That's because I've got them set different. What I want you to do is look at the field of view on these two ones. So that was the first one that obviously everyone failed on. Let's look at this one, C1. There we go. Right, get ready. There's C2. Notice it's just a little bit wider. Not a massive amount, and you'd expect more for a lens that size, but it is just a little bit wider, and it takes off a bit of the bend that you get on the vertical lines that you get with the fisheye effect. Other than that, there's no real difference in quality. The exposure is me just messing with the settings. One was +1 or +0.5 and the other one was 0. But you can see that it's just a little bit straighter at the edges. I'll show you this next one. Look at the lamppost on the right there. Notice how it bends in. And there you go. It does a little bit, but you see a little bit more, and it's a little bit straighter. It's not vastly different, and I'm going to show you some video from it now as well. So this is the C2 camera. Now, I don't really know if it's worth sort of getting a C2 over a C1. That's up to you. I think the C1 does quite a good job, but I suppose if you want to just reduce the fisheye a little bit, then maybe you want the C2. Not too sure. Now, if you buy one of these cameras, it's a very good idea to download the configuration utility. It runs on Windows only at the moment, I'm afraid. I'll show you some of the settings that you can change on this. I'm not going to go through them all. If you want to have a look, pause it and read the screens as we go through. You can have the date stamp on or off at the bottom right hand corner, and you can also have a bit of text next to that if you want. I've got Techmoan.com on some of my clips. You can have the light that flashes on or off. You can change the resolution of the photos. You can have it delay before it powers down between not powering down at all or different lengths of minutes. We'll move down to the bottom of this now so we can have a look at the other half. You can see the video sound. We can have the sound on or off. You can have time-lapse photos on this one, and that was the different amounts of time between each photo there. Motion detection is in there as well, as is G-sensor. Now notice those are two different things. I'll explain that in a moment. Video clip length, if you're using it as a dash cam, how long those clips are going to be, and that's where I alter the exposure at the bottom there. Once you've changed something, save it to the camera, click that one in the middle, and it'll update the settings in the camera. Now I'll show you how it works in the car. I've attached it to a suction cup mount from another camera here using the tripod Cradle. See, it's very easy to remove the camera and put it back in again. Of course, it would normally have a wire on it, but I'll explain more about that in a moment. Of course, you move the switch on the side to the center position for the recycle video if you're using it in a car. That way it will keep looping over and over the card as it fills up. Now I've got some footage that I shot in the car. Again, we've got that same issue that it's a little bit bright in the sky, a little bit dull on the ground, but it's that low winter brightness. So there are occasions when you find that the footage gets a little bit too dark, but it's not so that you can't see it. It just looks a little bit dull. Very sharp though, I've got to say that. I mean, you can read all the registration numbers and things. Of course, I am filming most of this in 1080p 30 again, because there's no point shooting it in 720p, because as we saw, it doesn't look too hot. Notice at the bottom right there, I've got a date and timestamp on there, and I've got Techmoan.com. Again, you can have these on or off in car mode or not. You've got to change it in that configuration utility I just showed you. Now, the big issue with using it as a car camera is that the leads supplied don't work to auto start and stop the camera. You have to get a special lead that'll do that. The supplied USB lead is of course very short, wouldn't reach to your lighter socket anyway, but it won't power and record at the same time, and it won't auto start and stop recording when it receives power. You do need a different lead for that doesn't come with the camera. Now I'll just show you a little bit driving into the sun here to show you how it affects the brightness. You can see it goes right down. This isn't unusual. There's a lot of car cameras that do this because of course there's an awful lot of sky and not so much road there. I suppose if you pointed it down a little bit it'd look better. Well, I'm showing you a 720p clip now. Remember, 720p is supposed to be 720p 60, but the chip or the sensor in this camera isn't actually capable of 60 frames a second, so there's going to be no sort of software update that fixes that. 720p 60 is what you see now. It doesn't look too great, and if I was you, I'd stick to 1080p 30. They do have exactly the same field of view, so you're not missing out on anything at all by shooting in 1080p 30. Let's see how the camera copes in the dark, and as you'd expect from the earlier footage, it does a really good job. Now you'll notice that this looks a little bit stuttery, and the reason for that is that the camera seems to knock the frame rate down in low light, so it's probably running at 20-21 frames a second rather than the usual 30 frames a second in 1080p mode. Now, of course, you're not trying to win any cinematography Oscars when you're out using it as a dash cam. You really just want the clearest image that you can possibly get. And you can definitely say it's a clear image, it's just a little bit stuttery. But I'd rather have a stuttery image where you can see what's going on than a silky smooth 1080p 30 image where you can't see anything because it's too dark. So as a compromise, I don't think it's a bad one. Now, one thing this camera does, apparently it has some sort of timed mechanism where after 6 PM it turns on a wide dynamic range HDR mode, and before 6 AM it turns it off. Now, I'm really not sure if this works if the camera's running on battery like it is in the shots I'm showing you, or if it only works when it's got that car dash cam lead plugged into the back of it and into your 12-volt socket or your USB socket. I haven't got one of those, so I can't test it out, but reading through some of the specs, it's supposed to have a scheduled HDR mode that goes on in the dark. You can see the weather, by the way, pretty rotten weather I've been having the last couple of weeks. I mean, for winter, not bad at all, but it means I haven't really been able to get out on the bike because, of course, this isn't a waterproof camera. If I attached it to my helmet and went out in weather like this, it wouldn't work when I got back. And I wanted to make this video for you. So, unfortunately, you're going to get no bike footage on this camera. We'll have to wait for summer to come round before we can try that out, I'm afraid. I should mention that the manufacturer has shown me a pre-production version of a waterproof case for this camera that they're working on, which will come in very handy in this country. Now, recently I mentioned I don't plan on doing any more dash cam reviews for a while. In some people's heads that translated to ever again. However, those are different words that mean different things. For a while means that I do plan on doing some more in the future, but I'm waiting for something to catch my attention, something interesting and different. I wouldn't mind having a camera in the rear of my car like this, because I think that's just as useful as the one in the front, if not more so, because it catches people that sort of pop on roundabouts very quickly and nearly take the back of your car off. So I do plan on doing some multi-camera dash cam reviews in the future, but for the moment you'll have to make do with this one. It does a pretty good job though. That line across the middle, by the way, that's the heated rear window. Now, earlier on I mentioned the motion detection. That's at the middle left of this screen here. Now that's different to the G sensor. The G sensor was the one where I flicked the camera, it felt the impact and started recording. This one isn't based on impact, this is based on motion that it sees using the camera lens. If you turn the camera on, you'll see it starts recording immediately when you've set this up in those menus, which is a bit annoying because you can't turn that off. You have to wait a minute, and then after a minute the camera will stop recording and wait to see some more motion before it starts again. So if I get my right hand here and wave it in front of the camera, it will notice that motion and it will start recording. It seemed pretty sensitive, it worked when I was out of the room as well. But if you want to use it, of course, remember you're only running on battery power at the moment using the leads in the box, because the lead supplied in the box will not power and let you record at the same time. It's just for data transfer or charging it up. The other lead, let's have a look at that. We'll plug that into the television. It's very short, by the way. You have to have the camera very close to the television, so it's not too useful, but it's a good demonstration of what it does. It enables you to look at a live viewfinder of what's going on from the camera. You can move between the modes. You can see it's 1080p there. If I press the mode button, we get into the 720p mode, and then press it again, we get into the photo mode. And then the final press gets you into the playback mode, where you can play back things you've recorded earlier on. So if I press it again, get back round to the 1080p mode, press the top one to start recording, you can see I'm now recording and streaming live video through those AV outs at the same time, which is useful for aircraft people who use these in their planes. Now, playing back the videos that I was showing you earlier on, of course, you've got sound and video, standard definition only, of course, using those leads. Not particularly brilliant and a bit annoying having to flick through 100 different files on those little buttons. Much better to put it on your computer. The weight, 46 grams for the camera on its own, or 1.625 ounces. Those are kind of approximate. I'm never too sure of those scales. Now, I know when people see the camera this way up, they'll think, I've got an idea. I'll stick that on the side of my motorcycle helmet. That'll make a really low profile camera. Well, no, it won't, because you can only use the camera this way up or this way up. I know it's pretty obvious to most people, but you can't use the camera this way up. People do ask me about this, which is a bit of a weird question. I'll just explain to them why now. If you hold the camera that way and then flip it on its side, here's what happens. Yeah, the video goes on its side. No surprise there, is there? Now, of course, you can change that in post-production. In my editing package, I can spin that round, and what do I get? Vertical video. You don't want vertical video, so if you put the camera sideways on, you're going to get vertical video. No use. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I know, I'll take it apart and flip the lens around. Well, no, you can't. It's kind of soldered on, and besides which, if you take it apart, you're going to have a devil of a time trying to get the thing back together again. Trust me, I tried. It was a nightmare. It also has lots of little bits of sponge in there to stop it rattling around, and you'll lose those when you take it apart. Right, so let's try and sum this up. Well, on the positive side, first of all, the camera's got very sharp 1080p video, and it's got decent quality sound as well. It's actually very sensitive. The orientation sensor comes in very handy if you're using the camera in a car and then taking it out and using it for something else. No need to go into setup programs to change the orientation of the video. That switch to move between looped recording and normal recording, again, very handy if you're using it in a car and then for something else. The tripod mount cradle comes in very useful. I think you might need to add a bit of tape to it if you planned on putting it on a bicycle helmet so the camera didn't pop out, but it's still useful all the same, and the price is really quite decent. But of course, it's not all one-way traffic. On the negative side, the top of the list has to be that non-standard USB port. It does make quite a few things rather awkward, including a need to use an additional lead to use this as a dash cam. Now, the setup application is Windows only at the moment. I believe a Mac version might be on the way. I feel the camera is a bit prone to underexposure at times. The 720p is pretty much useless. I wouldn't use that at all, and if you do take it apart, it's very hard to put it back together again. Now, that might be important if you want to change the battery on the camera. Now, if there's one question that I'm guaranteed to get asked is which is the best camera, the C1 or the Mobius? Now, hopefully I've given you enough information to be able to make your own mind up, but I'll just summarise the main points here. On the C1 side, it's cheaper, it's got that orientation sensor in it, and it's able to switch between looped and normal recording with the flip of a switch. On the Mobius's side, you've got a standard USB port. It's easier to take it apart to replace the battery, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think the exposure might be a bit more accurate. If you like the look of the Innovv C1, there's links to buy it in the video description, and there's some more over on my blog at techmoan.com, where you'll also find some downloadable sample clips. So there you go, that was my look at the Innovv C1. A very smart little micro HD camera, but beauty isn't just skin deep. Underneath, it's got quite a lot of useful features. The orientation sensor is especially handy. It's got a nice sharp 1080p video. I like the little switch on the side to move between the different recording modes. The USB port, that's a bit of a misstep and a mistake, but not much you can do about that now. I do like the controls on it. It feels really good. When you hold it in the hand, the thumb just sort of falls on those buttons in the right place. You can operate it without looking at it. I should have mentioned earlier on, it's got no vibration motor, no beep in it, and the case, of course, is made out of metal, if you couldn't have guessed that already. But you really have to hold one of these in your hand before you can appreciate just how nice it feels. But that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.